the chat. And also joining us will be Paula West Hernandez, who is the Region 2 Project Manager with TASC. And before we get started, I want to let you all know that we will be recording tonight's presentation so that we can rebroadcast it on our YouTube page. TASC has a YouTube page for those of you that don't know. And so feel free to visit. We have, several rebroadcasts of other webinars that we've provided. So we will record this one as well.
Diana, real quick, just is it record to the iCloud or to the
iCloud?
Okay,
iCloud. Yeah.
That's what I did. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Susie. No, that's fine. So Susie is going to be assisting us with the chat. We're a fairly large group tonight, so I would really ask that you reserve the chat for questions because there might be a lot of questions. And I think I told Susie there's about over 180 people that RSVP'd. I don't know that they're on yet, but they did RSVP for tonight's event. So it helps us if we reserve the chat just for questions so that we can, when we're ready for question time, we can easily access those questions, okay? So if you have questions, please feel free to use the chat. After the presentation, we will be answering all of your questions, okay? I also want to let you know that Susie is also going to be sharing a copy of tonight's PowerPoint presentation along with a resource guide, and that's for those of you who want to download it right now. If you can't, especially those of you that are on your cell phones, oftentimes people have trouble downloading it. Don't worry. I have the list of all the attendees, and I'm going to email all of you a copy of tonight's presentation along with the resource guide. Okay, so I just want to be sure that you guys are aware of that. But definitely, if you want to download it, Susie will be sharing it in our chat, okay? So as I said, as we proceed with the presentation, and I think some of you, I'm going to go ahead and reintroduce myself because I've seen that several other people joined us. Again, my name is Diana Drelas Ryan, and I am a family support specialist with TASC, and I'll be your presenter tonight if I forgot to mention that. I'll be the one that will be talking. So again, if you have questions, feel free to, sorry about that. My mouse is very sensitive. Feel free to utilize the chat. But if you have like a very specific question or a very, lengthy question or a question that, is just very, very unique, you can definitely use the chat, but also feel free to reach out to us. We are available to provide you support. So you can feel free to call us directly at 714-533-8275, or you can email us at task@taskca.org. And don't worry if you weren't able to write those down because you will have that information in the presentation, and Susie will also be sharing our contact information throughout the presentation. So don't worry about that, okay? So let's see. Oh, also, I want to mention that we're also going to be providing you with a survey link, which Susie will share in the chat, but you'll also find it at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. And we would really appreciate if you could take a few minutes and complete the survey. The information is important to us, not only for our grant purposes, but your feedback. It also helps us to identify any areas that we may need growth. So and also keep in mind, if there's a question on the survey that doesn't apply to you, please check off an A, not applicable, rather than check off a number. So also, before we get started, I want to let you know I'm in Riverside County, and I don't know if any of you are, but the winds are crazy here. And so I've been having a...
Sorry.
It's okay, Susie. I'm back, guys. Don't worry.
It's not the wind, it's Susie. It's me.
So I've actually actually, I was telling Paula earlier that I was doing my son's Zoom class and we got kicked off like 3 times. So what I'm going to do and what seems to help us is I'm going to turn off my camera. I'm obviously not going to mute myself, but I'm going to turn off my camera, and hopefully crossing fingers, I'm not going to be kicked off of Zoom. Okay. But if I do, don't worry, I'll be right back. Okay. So I just want to go ahead and let you guys know that I'm going to go ahead. Let me do that. Now, okay, so I will be back a little bit later, but I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera. And Susie, you can hear me okay? It's not breaking up?
No,
okay.
No, you're fine.
Perfect. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who aren't familiar with TASK is a parent training, information, and empowerment center that was founded over 40 years ago by a group of parents just like many of you. And they were essentially trying to understand and maneuver their way through special education. TASK has grown quite a bit over the last 40 years, and we now offer support throughout Southern California, including the counties of Los Angeles, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, and Imperial County. So our Orange County office is located in the city of Brea, and it's not only our main office, but it is also where our assistive technology department is located. Our LA County office is located in the city of Alhambra. Currently, our Riverside office, and Susie and I are from the Riverside office, we are offering support to all the counties, but we offer support to Riverside and San Bernardino counties. And our San Diego County office is located in Spring Valley, and that covers the counties of San Diego and Imperial. So our mission statement, essentially our goal at TASK is to educate and empower people with disabilities and their families. So the wonderful thing about TASK is that nearly all of the supports and services that we provide are completely free. So don't forget that. Free, what could be better than free, right? We offer individual telephone assistance where you can call our main office number and be connected with a family support specialist who will be able to assist and guide you. We also provide one-on-one virtual consultations via Zoom where we can review documents such as an IEP assessment or an assessment. In addition, we also offer virtual educational webinars such as the one that we're doing tonight. We also have, as I mentioned previously, an assistive technology department that is available to assist you via telephone, virtually, and through webinars that they also provide. I strongly encourage you to visit our website at www.tasca.org if you haven't already. It's super informative, and you'll find additional information about TASK, our services, upcoming webinars, along with a variety of other resources. So if you haven't already done so, definitely invite you to visit our website. So staff at TASK are family support specialists. We're not advocates, we're not attorneys, we don't provide recommendations or legal advice or suggestions. What we do is we offer peer-to-peer support, information, and options to the parents of children with disabilities so that they themselves can become informed members of the multidisciplinary team and work in collaboration with their child's team and school. So tonight, we will be presenting Navigating Special Education. And before we get started, I would like to let you know that the contents of this PowerPoint were developed under a grant from the Department of Education. However, those contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. So that's just a little disclaimer. And you guys can still hear me okay, Susie?
Yes.
Good. I can't hear myself, so I'm not sure if it goes in and out. So tonight, we'll be covering the following topics: the assessment process and timeline, special education eligibility, provisions under IDEA, IEP team members, contents of the IEP, IEP options, the appeal process, record request, medical insurance, and a variety of additional information. So we've got a lot of info for you all. So this is a very condensed list of acronyms that you might hear or see not only throughout this presentation, but perhaps at your individualized education program meetings, the IEP meetings. There's so many acronyms out there. I mean, I'm still learning them. We just had a military training and I was like, what are all the acronyms? So this is just a very condensed list just to help you become familiar with them. But I think that what you want to take away and what's the most important thing is that if you see or you hear any of these acronyms and you don't know what it means, don't be afraid to ask. It's so important that you have a clear understanding of what is being said and written so that you can be an active member of the team. Okay? So let's begin. The assessment process. So the very first step of the special education process is the assessment process. This process, it begins with a simple written request or letter for an assessment. We'll be reviewing a sample letter in the next couple of slides. However, for those of you that are beginning your journey and you would like assistance formulating your letter, or you need additional information or additional sample letters, this is definitely something that TASK can assist you with. As for who can request an assessment, a request can be made by a parent, a teacher, or any other service provider. Even a physician can request an assessment. And for those of you who perhaps already have an established IEP or individualized education program, and you would like your child to be assessed, this process is essentially the same. So the assessment request must be made in writing, and we typically suggest that you address your letter to the Director of Special Education. If you don't know who this person is, you can try finding them on the district website, or you can simply call the district directly and ask for their name. Once your letter's written, you have the option to hand delivering it to the district or to the school. You can send it via certified mail. Now, if you decide to hand deliver it, it's good practice for you to take 2 copies of the letter with you. You want to take one that you're going to deliver and provide to the school or the district, and one that you can request to have time set to confirm the delivery of the letter. And you also have the option of emailing your request. However, keep in mind that email can get a little tricky because there really is no way of knowing whether or not your email will accidentally go into the junk mail. So just keep that in mind, okay? So this is just something to consider. So once the district receives your letter, they have 15 calendar days to respond to your written request. And if they agree with your assessment request, they'll send you what is called an assessment plan. And it's essential that you read and understand the assessment plan. And if you agree with it, you simply sign it and you return it. Once the district has your consent, they can proceed with the assessment, and they will schedule an IEP meeting or individualized education plan meeting with you. It's important to note that the district needs your consent to assess your child. So it's only under very special circumstance that they would be able to assess a child without your consent. So it's important for you to send the assessment plan back as soon as possible so that they can proceed. In a few slides, we will review the assessment timeline in more detail, okay? So the next 2 slides are a sample assessment letter. As I previously mentioned, we do suggest that you address the letter to the Director of Special Education for your district. Keep in mind that your letter can be very simple. As you can see here, this sample letter is only requesting an assessment in the areas of the suspected disability. However, your letter can make more specific requests if you choose to do so. You could then possibly provide additional information regarding the areas that you're concerned about, but keep in mind, again, the letter doesn't need to go into great detail. So once the school district receives your letter, they have 15 calendar days to respond. And in this section of your letter, you're merely informing them that you are aware of the timeline. That's it. Okay. So let's review the assessment timelines. As I previously mentioned, the district has 15 calendar days to respond to your written request for an assessment. There's no official timeline with regards to your response to the assessment plan. However, we encourage you to respond to the assessment plan within 15 calendar days as well. And don't forget that the district needs your written consent to move forward with the assessment. So the longer you wait, the longer it'll take for your child to be assessed. Once they've received your consent, they have 60 calendar days to not only complete the assessments, but also schedule and meet for an IEP meeting where the IEP team, which includes you, will review the results of the assessments and determine whether or not your child meets the criteria to establish an IEP. So one of the most important provisions under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, I'm going to call it IDEA, okay, from here on forth because it is a little bit lengthy, is that regarding fair assessment. So this provision is super important, and the purpose of the fair assessment procedure is to determine whether or not the student who is being evaluated or assessed is in fact a student with a disability. Fair assessment also states that the student should be assessed in all areas of the suspected disability, and there should be a variety of assessment tools and strategies that are utilized to gather relevant functional, developmental, and academic information regarding the child. So no single measure or assessment tool should be used excuse me, to determine an appropriate education plan for the child. Now, per IDEA, which we're going to be reviewing in a little more detail in a little bit later, students with an established IEP must be assessed every 3 years. This is called the Triennial Assessment. And the purpose of the Triennial is to determine whether or not the student continues to meet the eligibility criteria and whether or not they continue to require the related services. The triennials also help to determine the student's current or present level of educational performance, or PLEP, which helps to update or establish goals. Now, keep in mind that a parent does not need to wait for the triennials for the child to be assessed. If a parent believes that there has been a change in a specific area, they can always request an assessment in writing, so long as it has been at least 1 year since the child was last assessed in that specific area. The triennial has a similar process as the initial assessment process, and parents will be asked to provide written consent to proceed with the triennial assessment. I'm going to take a sip of water, guys. Excuse me. Okay. So what happens if you don't agree with the district's assessment of your child? You have the option to request what's called an IEE, or independent evaluation, which is essentially that, an independent educational evaluation at the public's expense. Meaning the school district will pay for the IEE. As with most communications, the IEE must be requested in writing, and the parent must decide, again, whether to hand deliver, use certified mail, or email this request. Another option that I've seen is, let's say there's a scheduled triennial meeting or a scheduled IEP meeting to review assessments, and the parent has received and reviewed copies of the assessment before the scheduled meeting, however, does not agree with the assessments. They can also present a written IE request at the scheduled meeting. So if the school agrees with your request for the IEE, they may offer you a list of preferred providers. But keep in mind that you don't need to choose from that list, and that you can select an assessor outside of this list so long as they meet the qualification criteria. Okay. Now, if the school doesn't agree with paying for the IEE, they will need to file a due process complaint to request a hearing where they have to demonstrate that their evaluation is appropriate. And for those of you that aren't familiar with due process, we're going to be discussing due process in detail a little bit later in the presentation. So IDEA lists 13 different disability categories under which the child may be eligible for services. And these are them: autism, deaf and blindness, deaf, hearing loss, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, we see that one a lot, serious emotional disturbance, specific learning disability, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment, including blindness. So when your child qualifies for an IEP, they will qualify under one of these eligibility categories. So what's IDEA? IDEA is essentially the law that governs special education. It serves as the guide for providing special education, but more importantly, it establishes that the student's education should be tailored to their specific needs. We previously reviewed fair assessment, so it's on here, but we've already reviewed it. So let's continue with the other provisions under IDEA. So we will be reviewing FAPE, which is free appropriate public education, the LRE, which is the least restrictive environment, related services, the IEP meeting and document, and the appeals process. So let's get to the meat of it. So free FAPE, or free appropriate public education, is which essentially states that special education and related services must be provided at no cost to the parent. In addition, in order for the child's education to be free, it should meet the unique needs of the child's disability while still providing opportunity for the child to make progress towards achieving those IEP goals and objectives. And lastly, FAPE ensures that the student has access to the general education curriculum. The LRE, or least restrictive environment, says that children who receive special education should learn in the least restrictive environment. They should also be educated with non-disabled children as much as possible and spend as much time as possible with their peers who do not receive special education services. And when feasible, the child should also be educated in the school closest to their residence. An alternative placement, such as a special day class, separate school, or even removal from the general education class, should only be considered in a situation where instruction in the general education setting, even with supplementary aids, supports, and services, can't provide the student with an appropriate education. So listed are a variety of placement options. However, keep in mind that special placement should only occur if the child's disability requires it, and the placement decision should be determined by the IEP team, which includes the parent. Placement should also be reviewed and determined annually by the IEP team and should be based on the child's need. The IEP, and whenever possible, should be as close to the child's home as possible. It's also important to remember that the parent must typically agree with the proposed placement unless there is a special circumstance that may involve the child, the safety of the child, or the safety of others. And some possible placement options other than the general education setting include the resource specialist program, which is in or outside of the classroom, the specialized academic instruction, the special day class, non-public schools, and the California Department of Education website. It offers you additional information about non-public schools if you need that. The county's Office of Education program for those students who can't be educated in public schools, residential treatment centers, and state schools. And one example being the California School for the Deaf that's located in the city of Riverside. So listed are some examples of related services. Now, please keep in mind that not all children will necessarily qualify for related services, as the purpose of related services is to provide the child with supportive services that are required to assist the child benefit from special education. So some examples of related services are speech and language, audiology, psychological, counseling, physical therapy, occupational therapy, adaptive education, so like PE, um, mobility, transportation, school nursing service, and parent counseling and training. So what is the IEP? Right? The IEP, as I previously mentioned, it stands for the Individualized Education Program, or some might also refer to it as an Individualized Education Plan. And yes, the IEP is a written legal document, but it's so much more than that. You have to think of it as a roadmap that's explaining the specific types of educational instruction and supports or services that your child needs to flourish and succeed in school. In the next few slides, we will review areas that should be addressed in the IEP document, but let's begin with the IEP members. You as the parent, you are one of the most important and essential team members because nobody knows your child like you do. And your input, it's essential when formulating the IEP. Other members of the IEP team include one regular education and one special education teacher of the student, a school district representative, an assessor who can interpret evaluation results, such as the psychologist, related service providers whose area of expertise will be discussed during the IEP meeting, like maybe a therapist, a speech therapist. And if the child, I'm sorry, other individuals also on this list are someone who has knowledge or expertise regarding the child, maybe a regional center service coordinator or an ABA therapist. And remember that the parent has the liberty to invite others who they believe have knowledge about the child to their IEP meetings. And lastly, when appropriate, the child should attend the IEP meetings. And this is especially helpful when reviewing the individual transition plan that we will talk about a little bit later in the presentation. So let's discuss the contents and development of the IEP. When the members of the IEP come together to formulate the IEP, there should be a collaboration to ensure that the IEP contains the following information: the student's strengths, the parent's concerns, the assessment results, the child's communication needs, the present level of educational performance, and when applicable, any type of assistive technology that the child uses. You should also find statements about the child's present level of academic achievement and functional performance, as well as measurable annual goals, which include academic and functional goals, and a statement of how they will measure the child's progress towards meeting those annual goals and how you, the parent, will be notified of the child's progress. In addition, a statement of those special education and related services which are being provided should also be included in the IEP document. An explanation of how much time the student will spend outside of the general education class should also be included. Start and end dates and how often the child will receive a service should be explained in the IEP. And at age 16, or in some cases even younger, an individual transition plan should also be included in the IEP process. And again, we'll be reviewing the ITP in the next slide. Now, keep in mind that how this content is put together in the document, it really varies. I mean, IEPs look so different from one county to another: Orange County versus San Diego County, LA County versus Riverside County. So what's important to remember is that whatever format it is, that all of this information is included in the IEP document. So the ITP, or the Individual Transition Plan, it's a written planning guide, and it's designed to help prepare the high school student for their future. And it outlines what the child will need to live, work, to continue with their post-secondary education, whether that means going to college or attending a vocational or trade school. And it should be based off of a transition assessment that is completed. It should begin no later than the first IEP to be in effect when the child is 16 years old. However, keep in mind that it can be initiated at an even younger age if the IEP determines that it is appropriate. And like with the IEP, the ITP should identify goals, objectives, timelines, and it should be based on the student's needs, preferences, interests, and even their own specific goals that they might have for themselves. All of that should be included in the ITP. And don't forget, the ITP should be developed annually, whether that be during the annual IEP or at a special ITP meeting, which is scheduled on its own. So the diploma certificate of completion. The IEP team will determine whether the student will graduate with a diploma or will exit high school with a certificate of completion. And once decided, this information should be included in the IEP or the ITP. And remember, the diploma requirements, those are determined by each individual school district. So if you're deciding on this, that may be something you might want to consider, obtaining that information and what are the requirements in order for your child to receive a diploma. So let's briefly review accommodations and modifications. So an accommodation changes how your child is learning. So some examples might be providing more time or a quiet location for test taking, or a student who needs sign language interpretation. Okay, a modification, it changes what your child is learning. And some examples might include modification of your child's curriculum, or allowing the use of a calculator when other students aren't being given the same opportunity, or simply making assignments easier and modifying the level of difficulty of the assigned work. And if you would like additional samples of accommodations and modifications, this is definitely something that we can help you with at TASK. So requesting an IEP. For those of you that don't know, you can request an IEP meeting at any time, but especially when you feel that your child's educational needs have changed, or if you have questions or concerns. However, the request for the IEP meeting should be done in writing. And if you need a sample letter of this, again, this is something that we can assist you with. Now, once you've requested the IEP meeting in writing, the school district will have to hold the meeting within 30 days of receiving your written request. For those of you that didn't know, in the state of California, you have the right to electronically record your IEP meeting. If you decide that you wish to record your IEP meeting, you must provide written notice that you will be recording at least 24 hours prior to the scheduled IEP meeting. If you decide to record, then the district can also record. However, keep in mind that if you do not give consent to record, then the district cannot record. And under FERPA, you can get a copy of the district's recording. Let's say both of you recorded. You can ask them for a copy of their recording because it's part of the child's record. And this law down here, the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, that gives you the right to access your child's records. So signature options. It's so important that you understand and agree with the IEP when you're signing it. And don't forget that if you need additional time to review the IEP document, you can request to do so, and you don't have to sign the IEP. Okay, super, super important. Do not feel pressure to sign the IEP because it is essential that you understand it and that you agree with it. Okay, now above are some examples that you might find of signature options, and you can sign if you agree with everything and everything looks good and you feel like you fully understand the IEP. You can sign saying so, or you can even sign that you partially agree with the IEP. And as I previously mentioned, you can also decline to sign the IEP and spend more time reviewing it to ensure that you have that clear understanding. Okay. Prior written notice. So prior written notice is a safeguard that's also provided to parents under IDEA. And it essentially says that the school must give parents written notice in their native language or mode of communication anytime the district wishes to add, change, or deny educational services to the child. Or let's say they want to change the child's placement. And this safeguard, it also states that the school or district must provide a prior written notice if they have decided to deny a parent's request. So one example is, let's say you request an assessment in an area and they do not want to assess the child. They have to provide it to you in a prior written notice. So what happens if you do not agree or you have a dispute with the school or school district? Under IDEA, there's a protection which is called due process. And it provides the parent with the means to resolve their differences with the school or the school district by either what is called alternative dispute resolution or due process. And we're going to be reviewing these in the next couple of slides. Okay. So alternative dispute resolution, it's the most formal option between these, and it's definitely less costly because you don't have to hire an attorney. And some types of ADRs or alternative dispute resolutions might be a facilitated IEP or a meeting with the director of special education or school district or your local SELPAs, which is the special education local plan area, or even mediation via the Office of Administrative Hearings. Okay. Some reasons for ADR and due process might include a situation where the district attempts to initiate or refuses to initiate a change in special education eligibility. These are just examples, okay? Or perhaps the parent or the school district refuses to assess the child. Or there's a disagreement between the parent and the school district regarding the child's placement. These are just a few examples of why someone might have to proceed to ADR or due process. So here are the steps. Due process essentially begins with the filing of a written complaint. Following the filing of that complaint, a resolution meeting will be scheduled where you and the district attempt to reach an agreement before proceeding to due process hearing. You and the district also have the option of coming to a mutual written agreement to skip the resolution meeting and go straight to a mediation conference. And the mediation conference involves a meeting where a neutral third party called the mediator attempts to facilitate an agreement between you and the school district. Now, if you're unable to reach an agreement, then you will then proceed to a due process hearing where there will be just that, a hearing in front of a hearing officer who essentially acts like a judge. And after evidence and witnesses are presented, the hearing officer will make a decision about the case. Now, remember, this is a more costly option because it does involve hiring an attorney to help guide you in the process. So stay put. Stay put, it's essentially a provision under IDEA that states that the student will remain in their present placement during due process. Unless the district and the parent agree otherwise, the child will stay in the current placement. And a parent can invoke stay put when they're disputing changes the school or district wants to make to the child's IEP. One example being a disagreement about the child's placement, or perhaps the district has proposed changes to services that the parent doesn't agree with. A parent can invoke stay put, which will keep the child in their placement and allow the child to continue to receive the same services written in the IEP until you and the school district can come to an agreement or you proceed to due process. So you have the right to see and request copies of your child's school records, but remember that the request should be done in writing. And you'll find a sample records request letter on the next slide. But if you need additional letters, we can provide you with that. Now, in your letter, you will need to specify the types of records that you are requesting, and you need to specify the period of time for which you are requesting the records. For example, in your letter, you may state that you're requesting all of the assessments from September 2019 through January 2021. And under the California Education Code, you should receive the requested records within 5 business days. And also, just for those of you that don't know, you can also request that any fees associated with making those copies be waived. So you don't have to pay for them. So here it is, sample letter that I mentioned. And you complete the letter and again, decide how you're going to deliver it to the school or the school district, again, in person, via certified mail. So private insurance and Medi-Cal. The school district can ask to use the parent's private insurance or Medi-Cal to pay for related services. However, keep in mind that they need to obtain the parent's consent before doing so. And remember that consent is voluntary and you can revoke it at any time. And if you decide to not provide consent, then remember that the school district is responsible for providing all IEP services free of charge to you. Now, this consent, it's typically located on the IEP document, and oftentimes parents sign and give consent to the school to bill their insurance without even realizing it. So this is why it's so important that you all pay close attention to what you're signing during your IEP meetings. So Senate Bill 277, it became effective in 2016, and it essentially states that personal belief exemptions are no longer being accepted and that children must be up to date with their immunizations, or they have to have a medical exemption from a licensed physician. However, we're mentioning it just to say that this change didn't affect those students who had an established IEP, because they should continue to receive all necessary services identified in their IEP, regardless of their vaccination status. So your home files. See up here, it says it's important to maintain an organized home file. It is so important to maintain an organized file, one that's easily accessible. And there's so many ways that you can do it. You can do it with a 3-ring binder, with an accordion file. If you're lucky enough to have space for a file cabinet, definitely use that. And, it's not only for your child's educational records. If your child is a regional center consumer, or they have Medi-Cal or in-home supportive services, or even Social Security, all of these records should be well organized and easily accessible. Okay. Did I breeze through this? Yeah, didn't I? So that is all of our information. On this page, what you'll find is you'll find information about different educational codes and also the link for our survey, but we are going to open it up to questions for those of you that have questions. But again, I do ask that you do take a couple of minutes to complete our survey. And if there is a question on the survey that doesn't apply to you, make sure that you check off not applicable. And for those of you not familiar with that QR code, if you scan that little square onto your phone, it'll take you directly to our to the link for the survey. Okay. Okay, Susie. I'm gonna turn my camera on so you can see me again.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am. Okay. Did we have questions, Susie?
We sure do.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. See.
And I know that was a lot of information, guys. A lot of information, but don't worry. The handout will provide you with the information. And always remember, if you have questions, we're here. We're here to answer any questions that you have. We're available. So just feel free to reach out to us.
Okay, so we'll start with the first one from Lisa. Are there any places in San Diego doing in-person versus virtual speech therapy for toddlers? Parent has tried virtual services, but they are not working for child 2.5 years old. What suggestions can you offer?
I'm going to say that I'm not sure. However, we do have a San Diego office that we can definitely ask to provide us with additional information as to what's happening in San Diego County. And, you know, we can definitely reach out. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and email me and then I can reach out, connect you to our San Diego office who might be able to provide you some more insight in the San Diego area. But I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Paula.
No, that's it. I think every county is doing it, and every company is and provider is handling things differently. So
different.
We'll reach out to San Diego. That's a great idea, Deanna.
Okay, another question from Lisa. How are the assessments being done during COVID time?
It's honestly, it's unique to every district, as Paula just said, but they are being done. I think that the most important takeaway here is that everyone know that assessments should be done. You know, in spite of COVID, there are, you know, as I mentioned, there's not just one single assessment tool that should be used. There, you know, there's a variety of options, and those vary. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, they vary from district to district. So keep that in mind.
And Deanna,
Yes,
I also like to add to that.
Yeah.
So in there was a Senate Bill 117 that a lot of districts are still using to kind of give them a loophole so that they don't have to follow the assessment timeline. So with that, what that Senate bill used to do is it said that, you know, school districts didn't have to provide assessment plans within 15 calendar days to families that requested assessments. But, you know, it's important to know that that law became inoperative on July 1st of 2020. So that bill is no longer effective. And the California Department of Education has also concurs that districts need to move forward with assessments. We understand there's a backlog, but nothing in the federal law or state law right now say that assessments cannot be provided. And so districts can provide them in person, they can provide them virtually, they can do a hybrid model, but whatever they're going to do, they need to do it, and they need to comply with both federal and state timelines and guidelines.
Correct. So they're doing assessments. I think that, again, that's the most important takeaway, guys. Assessments are being done and they should be done.
Okay.
Thank you, Paula.
question from Juana Nunez. How about if you share educational rights on your child with other parents who is not advocating for child? I don't know if it's a question.
I'm not sure how to answer that. I think maybe you want to email me, because I have questions and I need more information, and it might be good to maybe have a conversation.
And that honestly, so we primarily provide special education services. And if there's something going on with custody or that type of thing, that would be a question for a family attorney or a family paralegal, because that's beyond our scope of expertise. Unless there's questions related to special education, and then of course, then that's something that we can help with, but we're not experts in family law or custody.
Okay. How often do schools agree to pay for an IEE?
I'm not sure how to answer.
Wait, I'm sorry, what was the question?
How often do schools agree to an IEE?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Is there, I don't know if there's data on that, but gosh, you know, there's times where they do agree to the IEE. Deanna, I had to step away for just a minute. I apologize, but when you talked about the IEE, did you
Yes.
talk about the fact that even if a parent gets an IEE, the district doesn't have to use the...
I didn't review that, no.
Do you want to? I think that might be important for them
I could add that. I could,
okay.
Yeah, definitely. So one thing to remember, I know this isn't answering your question. Don't think that we forgot about your question,
Exactly.
Okay? This is just additional information. So it's important to know that, let's say the district agrees to the IEE and you proceed with the IEE. They have to consider the results of that independent evaluation, but they don't have to implement that the recommendations in that evaluation. Okay, so I know some of you are like saying, well, then what's the point? Right? The point is it's support. It's support, written, documented support for you to continue to advocate for those services, but also it will also help support you. Let's say there's a situation where you have to go to due process, or you decide to pursue due process.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of knowing the number, we don't know, but,
oh, no.
But from what, and of course, when parents call us, typically it's because they're having difficulty getting whatever it is that they're asking for. So for us, we would say, you know, in the cases that we see, 60% of our cases,
Yeah.
but then whereas you know, we don't receive all of the calls. So there are parents, though, who have been quite successful in getting independent educational evaluations and also getting the results through either alternative dispute resolution or due process. They've appealed the district's decision, and they've gotten some kind of order so that the IEE results have to be included in the IEP. So parents have met with success.
I was going to say, Paula, I think if nothing else, let us say, to reassure you, it does happen. They do approve IEEs.
Yes.
So, you know, definitely if it's something that that you want to pursue it.
Yeah. Can I add something real quick? Diana,
of course, Susie.
We do have information regarding the IEE with in writing. So if you want information on how to request the IEE, you can definitely give us a call and we can email you that information so that you better understand how to request the IEE at district's expense, because you have to specify it, that you are requesting it at district expense. So we do have sample letters for the IEEs also.
Thank you, Susie.
Okay, next question. What qualifies intellectual disabilities?
I'm not sure how to
Do-
answer that, Paula.
So for regional center purposes,
Yeah.
for regional center purposes, it's a score of 70 or below, right? On an IQ,
Yes.
on the IQ. And so there's, the district uses standard scale scores, raw scores, a variety of percentage rating. So they use a variety of different scoring methods. But you know, if a child is very far behind their peers, that could be, it could be an indicator of a learning disability, but there are specific tests that can be done. There are specific tests that the district can use, and we're not school psychologists, so I don't know the scoring as far as the school district is concerned. I know for regional center purposes, it's at 70%, or that, you know, if a child's at that or below that number, then they would qualify as a child who has an intellectual disability, but I'm not sure for the school districts.
And one thing I want to just add, Paula, that I forgot to mention, and I'm sorry, is, you know, don't worry so much. One, the schools cannot diagnose, okay? They cannot diagnose your child, but also don't worry so much about the diagnoses, because the diagnoses is not necessary in order for the child to qualify for an IEP. It's the need. The eligibility, yes, do they have to identify them under one of those categories? They do, but it doesn't mean that they have to be diagnosed. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, so that was good, really good, Deanne, if I can add to that too. So there's a medical diagnosis is completely different than determining the educational need for services. So that's kind of the distinction. So the school is there to determine whether or not the child meets the, you know, the educational need for service. So does that child require specialized services in order for them to receive education? That's the school's, what the school wants to do, and needs the answer in order to provide services, where a doctor is going to give you a medical diagnosis, and the school doesn't necessarily need, I mean, they don't need the medical diagnosis in order to determine whether or not the child requires educational supports. So there's a difference. You've got to separate the medical versus the educational.
Thank you, Paula.
Okay, next question from Alexander. What is the difference between an SAI class and a special day class? Are they the same thing?
They're not the same thing. So, they are not the same thing. So special academic instruction, Paula, correct me if I'm wrong. Basically what that is not necessarily a class, right?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a class.
So, okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and let you take this one, Paula.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. This is something kind of new to California, sort of fairly new, but so we have RSP, you know, I think the majority of us are familiar with RSP and special day class mild to moderate and special day class moderate to severe. And so California has gone to an SAI model, which is kind of combining, we still have RSP in many schools, but many other schools have combined RSP and special day class mild to moderate into an SAI class. And so a student may spend the majority of their day in the gen ed setting, but then they might need specialized instruction for math or for English language arts, or science, let's say. And so then they would go to the SAI room and they would receive specialized academic instruction with other students who are having those same difficulties in that same subject. So you're in a class and you're getting specialized instruction in a particular subject. Rather than the students spending most of the day in a in a special day class, they're only spending 1 or 2 periods in there, depending on what their need is. And those are for children who have more mild mild disabilities, like a learning disability or maybe an attention deficit disability. Children who still have more severe and more impacted disabilities are still spending most of their day in a special day class that's geared to provide functional skills and is more like the traditional moderate to severe class that we're used to seeing. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you, Paula.
Sure.
Okay, next question from Helen. Transition plans should be developed annually. Beginning what year of high school is it recommended to hold first IEP meeting to discuss and develop first ITP?
So the ITP has to be in effect when the child turns 16. That it should be in effect. But again, don't focus so much on the age. It has to be in effect by the age of 16, but that if the child would benefit from starting or initiating that sooner, that's a decision that can be made by the IEP team.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question.
And parents have the option to request that. I've seen kids with an ITP at age 12, so the parent can always request that.
And if I could just add, Paula, because I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it, also keep in mind the whole transition conversation. You don't have to wait until high school. Even in 8th grade, you can start mentioning it and just start talking about it, because for a lot of our kiddos, that it's going to take a while to prepare for that big transition into adulthood.
Okay, next question. Is the district required to give you a copy of proposed IEP before the meeting?
You can request it, I guess, if they have a proposed. But I'm going to say no, Paula. Is the answer no?
Yeah, they're not required. And Deanna, you mentioned, and I think you covered this really well, but the parents are an integral part of the IEP process, and you really, really want to be there when the document is being developed so that your input is captured in that document, and they shouldn't be developing a document without parental input, right? And the other thing is, there was another thing that just went straight out of my brain. I hope it flies back in. If it does, I'll share it. But oh, I know what it is now. So sometimes they'll send you what they call a draft. Just be very careful if they do send you a draft. One thing that you can do, make sure that you document that that's the draft, so that when you get the actual copy of the IEP to sign, you can compare it against that document to see if they indeed provided you a copy of the IEP that was developed during the meeting that you attended. And the other thing that they can do, and that I found helpful with my son's IEP, is they can send you a copy of draft goals prior to the IEP meeting. And that way you can go through those to see if you would like to discuss modifications to the goals that they're proposing at the meeting. So that is helpful. But again, they're not writing the document. They're just sending you some draft copies of goals so you can look at them to see, if you want to add to those.
Okay.
Also remember, you don't have to sign. You can take that document with you so that you feel comfortable and confident signing it. Okay.
So, it's very important. Gwen asked question regarding the insurance. When I asked the school said it's not to bill my insurance, but so that they can put my daughter's name on the list that they sent to get more funding. Is this true?
Oh no, that's the first time I've heard something like that,
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
Me too.
It's the first time I've heard that. So I think I don't know to answer your question. However, what I want to say is, again, this is why it's important that you're reviewing. It could be, consent to bill your insurance honestly could be something as simple as a check on a box that you didn't realize was checked off. And so that's why it's important for you to review the document and to make sure that you agree with it. And don't stress too much. Let's say you have signed, because don't forget, you can revoke that. Okay, you can, let's say you've already consented for them to bill your insurance. You can always revoke that consent. Just give us a call and we can, guide you through it.
And
We also have a sample letter to revoke signature also.
Yes. And then Deanna, I just want to mention, in addition to the IEP document, because you're right, it can be included in the document, in the middle of the document sometimes, or different locations, and we just don't always see it as parents, because we've been emotionally vested. But the other place that permission may be granted, or you maybe you see that you're signing for consent, is on the actual assessment plan. So sometimes when you're signing that assessment plan to approve, the district completing assessments, you're actually also signing for consent to use your medical or Medi-Cal insurance. Yeah, so just double check that as well.
I hadn't seen that follow-up, so thank you.
Yeah.
So if you're, this is for Ashley. So if your kid isn't vaccinated, they aren't eligible for an IEP? I'm confused.
No, if your child has an IEP, then that specific law that we referenced, it doesn't apply to your child. Does that answer? Does that make sense?
Okay. If it doesn't make sense, then write another question.
Thank you. Thank you, Susie. I was just about to say that.
Okay. What else should we keep organized? Can you please go more in depth?
Yeah, your IEP documents, your assessments. If your child is a regional center consumer, their IPP or IFSP documents. Any letters that you receive from Social Security, from Medi-Cal, from in-home supportive services.
Assessment reports.
Yes, I mentioned the assessment reports. And it also depends on you and how much you want to keep. As far as like the education part of it, assessment reports, any special incident reports that you might get from the school, any special incident reports from regional center. Just those are really the key documents that you want to keep.
And Deanna, to add to that, oh, I'm sorry, Susie.
Sorry, notes from the teacher, any notes from the teacher?
Yeah, copies of goals, copies of letters back and forth, correspondence with you and the district or the school, your communication log if you have one, samples of your students' work.
And let me just add something real quick. A lot of times incident reports aren't provided to parents if you don't request it. So if there's an incident that happened during school or after school in the premises of the school, in the bus, you have to request, or else sometimes, a lot of the times the school doesn't provide it. So it's important for parents to request the incident reports.
Thank you, Susie and Paula.
Okay. Ms. Bowen also wanted to know more information regarding insurance. I don't know if the information you provided was enough regarding the questions of insurance. So Ms. Bowen, if you want to ask other questions regarding insurance, please write it on the chat.
Yeah, and don't forget, you can also email us, call us, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good? Okay. Thank you.
Like, where did she go? Oh, she's there. Okay. So Sandra asked, what rights does a student who is about to age out of his adult transition program have if he wants to continue at his current placement for the next fiscal year? His birthday is in and did not put when. September, okay, yeah, September, but due to the pandemic and emotional issues he is experiencing, he's not ready to change placements.
The student is aging out, right, Susie?
Yes, aging out of adult transition.
Okay, so the first thing that comes to my mind, and Paula, I'll ask that you maybe add any additional information, is if this is a regional center consumer, are you in communication with your service coordinator? And what support is regional center offering you? Because you know, once the child ages out, and I don't know, I'm going to leave this to Paula because I'm not sure about the changes with COVID. But once the child ages out, I don't believe that there's too much leeway with that. But Paula, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. You're right. So once a child can remain in the transition program or receive school district services through age 21 until they reach their 22nd birthday. But you're right, Deanna may be following up with the case coordinator to see if perhaps regional center, if it's a placement or a program that's open to non-school district students, then maybe regional center, you know, that you can talk to them to see if that's an option for them to fund that program. Also to the Department of Rehabilitation.
Yes, I was just about to say that.
Were you okay?
Yeah,
you want to connect with that one, Deanna? I mean,
no,
continue with that?
Go ahead,
okay.
Paula, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Department of Rehabilitation is another great agency for students who are either, you know, in high school and want to become employed, or if they are leaving high school and they want to either pursue an education, want to develop or go to develop employment skills, or if they need help with other transition services getting into adulthood. So maybe, you know, connecting with that department. Their primary goal is to help people obtain and maintain employment. I just want you to know that, Department of Rehabilitation. And if it takes an education, then they can help fund an education and do, you know, and provide accommodations and things like that. But if your child is a client of Department of Rehabilitation, then that would be another agency to contact to see if perhaps they can fund that program or another one similar to that.
Okay, another question from Juan. Also, where can I guess, add the accommodations on the IEP? My daughter has OT evaluation, and we discussed that my daughter needs box chair or those sit that helps keep her busy. Can I prep student? Can a PREC student get accommodations in state PREC? I don't know what that is, PREC, P-R-E-K.
Pre-K?
Oh, pre-K.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, yeah.
Like pre-K.
That's okay.
It's okay, yeah.
So sorry. I'm not understanding the question, Susie. I'm so sorry. I mean, she's asking about accommodations and where the accommodations should be documented.
In the IEP.
And her child's in pre-K, right? And she wants a chair, a specialized chair that has like maybe fidgets or activities built within the unit.
Box chair or those chairs, I guess, that help her keep busy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe like a sensory, like the sensory chairs.
Where can they add the accommodations in the IEP? Or include, maybe she didn't finish the sentence.
So sorry. I don't know, Paula, do you understand maybe or what she's saying?
I think so. Basically, I think the question is where can you write, or where can she ask the accommodations to be added? What part of the IEP with the accommodations? I think that's the question.
Yes.
You know.
Where can they include in the accommodations?
No, but where are they located? Like what part of the IEP, right? So
yes.
Yeah. Does that help, Deanna, or do you want me to?
No, I guess because I'm thinking of the whole question. So no.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
Maybe can you ask that question again? If you put the
When?
question again in chat? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, okay.
Are your services available to assist in reviewing IEP assessments? Oftentimes, it is hard to understand the reports and language is used.
100%, yes. That is primarily what we do. That is reviewing IEPs and assessments. So definitely, for whoever wrote that question, definitely reach out to us.
We do offer IEP consultations for an hour so that we can go over the documents. Okay. You can also ask for certain assessments to be used, right?
Can you read that again, Susie?
Yeah.
Okay, the question says, you can also ask for certain assessments to be used, right?
Oh, okay. So I think like assessment tools, Deanna, like a certain, like the WISC-2 or the Connors 3, or yeah, specific assessment tools.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what she's asking. That's what they're asking.
And the answer is yes, right, Paula? Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Doesn't mean they have to.
It
but
does.
you can
Yes,
ask.
I was just about to say you can ask, but it doesn't mean that they have to.
Okay, my daughter was denied special education services by the Irvine Unified School District. Can she apply for an IEP at a different school district? For example, if grandma lives in Fullerton, can she apply for an IEP there?
If she's attending a school in a different district, she can always request an assessment. And even within the Irvine School District, if you would like for your child to be reassessed at any time, like you in the future, you feel like they would still benefit from an assessment, you can always request the assessment. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, so you have to live, I think so, yes, it did. And Deanna's absolutely right. You have to live in the district. It should be your district of residence. That's the one that's responsible to complete the assessments. And if you just had the assessment completed, if you haven't had a long period of time since the assessments were completed and your child was denied, you can still ask for an IEE if it's been under a year or less than a year. 12 months is the cutoff point. So if it's been less than 12 months, then you can ask for an IEE at that point because you're in disagreement with the outcome of the district's assessments. But if it's been more than that, then no. And also too, you can contact TASC because there's ways, if you look at the assessment reports, sometimes there are things in those reports that would help to show that your child really would qualify for special ed services. And we might, we would provide those options to you if we see them with that information. So if it's been less than 12 months, please contact us because we can review those documents with you and then tell you what the options are and what we're seeing in those documents.
Okay. Our daughter just turned 18 years old and just graduated from high school, but we are deciding to let her stay in the school until 21 or 22 years old. We are having an IEP meeting in the next 2 weeks. What do we need to expect, or what can we request from the school to help our child who is 50-50 ID, intellectual disability and autistic? She is verbal, but doesn't fully understand and comprehend 100% and cannot read words. What can we do for our daughter in order to be able to reach her goals and for her career?
How do I answer this, Paula? We can't make recommendations. We're not assessors. So we can't, I'll begin by saying that, we can't assess your daughter. So we're unable to make specific recommendations as to what her needs are. I'll say that. But Susie, I just wanted to clarify, did they say she graduated with her diploma?
No, she didn't. They didn't specify.
Oh, okay.
I thought I heard that she.
Yeah, I thought you said that she graduated.
Graduated from high school,
Yeah.
but doesn't specify
Oh.
with a certificate or a diploma.
Okay, so I think that's what's confusing me a little bit. And
I-
correct me if I'm wrong, Paula, if she graduated with her diploma, my understanding is
The-
that
The mom is answering and saying only a certificate.
oh,
She just put
okay.
that in chat.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect,
Oh,
perfect,
okay.
perfect. Okay, so I'm so sorry, Susie. It was a lengthy question. Could you read it to me again? I'm sorry,
Sure.
everybody.
It's okay.
Oh, okay. Our daughter has just turned 18 years old and just graduated from high school, but we are deciding to let her stay in the school until 21 or 22 years old. We are having an IEP meeting in the next 2 weeks. What do we need to expect, or what can we request from the school to help our child who is 50-50, intellectual disability and autistic? She is verbal, but doesn't fully understand and comprehend 100% and cannot read words. What can we do for our daughter in order to be able to reach her goals and for her career?
Okay, so the first thing I want to mention is, was there a transition assessment that was done? Was there a vocational assessment that was done? Because that assessment can probably help guide you as to what goals and objectives should be formulated in the ITP.
Yeah. And if I can add, to
Paula,
that, Deanna.
of course.
So, if your daughter already graduated or has completed her certificate requirements, so if she completed that, but she hasn't completed her transition goals, let's say that she met her academic or her life skill goals, but she has not met either the goals for transition or her IEP transition goals. If those haven't been met, then that would be one way to keep her education moving forward, because she's done the academic part, but not the transition part of her program. But if those transition goals have also been met, then she's met the district's requirement and the district has met their obligation to provide FAPE. So it kind of, I think at this point, is you need to look at those transition goals and you need to see if she has met those. Or if she if she hasn't, do you need to modify those goals, or do you need to modify services, that type of thing? You can meet with the team to discuss transition.
Okay, next question. My son is autistic and has had an IEP since the beginning. He received the diagnosis since 18 months. My question to you is that he has been assigned an instructional aid to help him throughout the day. However, Joshua's aid isn't bilingual. He is an ESL learner, but the district is telling me that they are obligated to provide an IA who is bilingual. What can I do?
But wouldn't a bilingual aid be beneficial? Am I not understanding the question correctly?
The aid is not bilingual.
Oh, it's not
He is
bilingual.
an ESL learner. But the district is telling her that they are not obligated to provide a bilingual instructional aid.
Well, I guess, Paula, in a circumstance, the aid has to be able to communicate with the child, right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
yes.
I think it's as simple as that. I mean, if they are providing support to the child, they have to be able to communicate in the child's native language. However the child communicates, not even their language, whatever means the child communicates, the aid has to be able to communicate with the child.
Yes, because that aid is providing one-on-one support to help that child access academic benefit. And if they can't access academic benefit because the aid can't help them, then that's defeating the whole purpose.
Yes.
It's kind of, yeah. So,
Yeah.
the other thing is, your other option would be to ask for a prior written notice. So whenever they tell you something like that, when they tell you that something is not possible, get them to put it in
Excellent idea,
writing,
Paula. Yeah,
right? And ask for prior
absolutely.
written notice so that they can explain. That prior written notice needs to explain, what is being denied, why it's being denied, the steps that the district took to reach its decision, including either the federal or state law that supports their decision. And then what alternatives you have as a parent, and where you can go to get more information about your parental rights. All that should be included in a prior written notice. So I think that would be your first option, would be to request a prior written notice regarding the denial to provide a bilingual aid.
Okay. How long should you hold on to your child's IEP forms after they graduate?
5 years? I'm not sure.
I know.
Is it like taxes? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. This is so my son is a young adult, and I still have his IEP documents, but I don't know that I'm legally bound to hold on to them. I don't think there's a required number of years, right, Deanna?
Think so, but I will say this. I mean, if your child has pursued post-secondary education, hang on to them, you know what I mean, because you can refer, like, if they're receiving, I'm going to go into the 504 here, right? Like accommodations under the 504, that might, an IEP might give you good ideas as to what accommodations might have worked for your child previously. I don't know. I mean, so don't be so quick, especially if they're continuing their education to shred them.
Another reason, if I could add, to keep them is that also if your child has behavior issues, you never know. We did get we had a lawyer visit, or I was in a training, and a lawyer was telling us that a lot of times, and he's a lawyer for adults with special needs, and a lot of times, they had to go back to the IEPs and to see how, what type of services they had received, and it could help in the event of, they get in trouble with the law if you have that information also. So it's up to you as a parent how long you keep them, but you know your child better than anybody else, so you know that you might need that information in the future. So that might be helpful too.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is I don't, neither Susie, Deanna, or I are aware of a required time frame.
Yeah.
I think it's an individual choice.
Right. Okay, so next question. I find that even though goals are not being met in the IEP reviews, yet the school tries to cut modifications and supports. How can we push to keep the supports for our child?
So I want to say, this is how I want to answer this question. When the school is trying to take away a service, they have to show that the need has been met. Okay, so I'm not sure if that helps with your question, but you have to remember that they can't just decide, okay, I'm coming to an IEP and we have decided that we're going to take away this support, right? This service, because through the assessments, they have to show that the need no longer exists.
So that's the key, I think, too, Deanna, like you just said. At that point, your option would be to ask for the district to do an assessment. If it's been more than 12 months since they've done an assessment and they're proposing to take away services because either A, your child isn't meeting the goal, or B, they've met the goal, for whatever reason, and and there isn't any documentation to show that the service should be taken away. I mean, they should do an assessment. So that would be your option. Like Deanna said, ask for the assessment to be completed. If your child isn't meeting a goal, maybe you need to meet with the team to discuss a modification to the goal. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe that goal isn't challenging enough, or maybe it's too challenging. So maybe it needs to be modified.
And also, just to go back to what you mentioned earlier in the previous question, Paula, remember that you can always ask for prior written notice too.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, next question. Are IEE evaluations currently being done in LAUSD? My son was approved for an IEE since June 2020, but has not received an evaluation yet. I believe they are not doing it because they are not doing in-person evaluations. Do you know if an IEE evaluation could be done virtually?
Okay, I'm going to answer the last part first. I don't see why an IEE couldn't be done virtually, okay? But I think I'm a little bit confused because the coordination of the IEE is done by the parent.
Right.
Correct, Paula? Susie, correct me if I'm
What,
wrong.
what are you saying?
The
The
coordination of an IEE is the parent's responsibility because
no,
they're the ones that are asking for it, right?
but they don't have to coordinate. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by coordinating.
Because she's saying that, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, Susie. She
Mhm.
requested an IEE. The IEE was approved, and she's waiting for the school district to coordinate the IEE.
Yeah, they're the ones that have to put everything together, not the parent, because the parent can propose, they can put forward a list of evaluators, but the district is ultimately the one that determines if they're going to move forward with the IEE and if they're going to use the parents' evaluators. So they have to negotiate
Oh,
on that.
I see. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the actual scheduling of the IEE is done by the school district?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that's important to know is that, you know, with the assessments, right, that the district completes, the ones that they complete, there's a timeline associated with that. And Deanna did a really good job of reviewing that with her PowerPoint training. But with an IEE, there isn't a timeline. So they can, I mean, honestly, they can take as long, the parameters are that they're supposed to do it within a reasonable amount of time, but there isn't a set timeline like that, like they have to complete it within 60 calendar days, like they do with an assessment. So, you know, the squeaky wheel gets the attention, right? So write to them again. If you don't hear from them, write to them again. That way, if you have to appeal or try to file a compliance complaint for whatever reason, you have documentation to show how often you tried to work with the district to move forward on their approval of that IEE and to get that IEE moving, you know, to get it in place. So I think that would be the option, yeah, to follow up with them and try to get something in writing, and always attach your correspondence, that your previous correspondence to your current one, so that they can see the paper trail. They can see the history of all of your requests.
Okay, next question. Our student assessment began in public school. She is now in private school. Is it possible to combine public and private school services? The assessment report is finished. We now have to schedule the IEP meeting. What is possible?
I'm sorry, I'm rereading the question, Susie. Paula, I don't know if you want to,
Okay,
if you
sure.
want to add anything. So,
Okay, so if it depends on who placed the child in the private school. Did the parent place the child, or did the IEP team place the child? So let me answer both of the questions, I guess. So if the IEP team placed the child, then the public school continues to be the responsible, you know, district to provide services to the child. But if the parents place the child in the private school, then what will happen is the parents will meet with the private school and also the district that the school is in. They'll meet with that team, and they'll develop what's called an individual service plan. And they'll take the assessment report and they'll use that as the, to determine what services the child would need if the child returned to public school. So with an individual service plan, there's two components to that plan. There's a plan that talks about the accommodations and services that the child will get at the private school. And then there's another component that talks about what the child would receive if they return to public school. So they're going to take that assessment report. They're going to determine if the child went to public school, what services that child requires based on that assessment report. And then they're going to take that assessment report and they're going to determine, does this child require accommodations at the private school? And is the district that the school in, is that district going to provide any type of service to that child? Because there's a very marginal, very small percentage of public funding that parents who have placed their children in private schools can use to provide services for their children. It's a really minuscule percentage of that funding. But if there is funding available, then the district can provide some types of consultation. Once in a while, I've seen them provide some kind of direct related service to the child, but those services will be based on the assessment report that was just completed. So I hope that answers the question. If not, please put another question in chat.
Okay, next question. Would speech and language disabilities be considered a learning disability?
I guess I'm thinking of like specifics like dyslexia, like what, you know what I mean? Or are we just talking like a speech therapy need or intervention?
Would speech and language disabilities be considered a learning disability? That's
so go ahead, Paula. Sorry, go ahead.
Do you want to
well, no, because I was just gonna say that, I guess like dyslexia or dysgraphia, that would fall under a learning disability, correct, Paula? Like those types of, so
sometimes what I'm thinking of is under the idea, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, a student has to meet specific criteria under whatever category they qualify in. So there are kiddos who qualify under speech and language. Maybe they have an auditory processing deficit and they require speech services to help work through those auditory processing concerns, but those auditory processing concerns can also create difficulties for reading or perhaps writing as well. And it contributes to a learning disability, so that you might have you might have disabilities that qualify under a variety of categories or more than one category. So it really depends, if you're talking about just speech and language, then there's speech and language. But if you're talking about other concerns that are related to speech, like auditory processing, as I said, or with autism, sometimes, well, I won't even go into all the other. I hope that answers your question. I'm going to get too muddy watered here if I go on more.
That was the kind of, it wasn't a hard question, but I think that we needed a little bit more information to answer it for you. So.
Okay. I think this is a question that we had before. Our daughter just turned 18 years old, graduated from high school, and just in the process of conservatorship. We decided that we let our daughter to stay in school until 21 to 22 years old. Okay. We are having an IEP meeting in the next 2 weeks. And what do we need to expect, or what can we request from the school to help our daughter, who is 50 autism and MRI. She is verbal 75%, but not able to read words.
Susie, the mom is putting in chat that's the same question.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
And can I add something, Paula, though?
Yeah, sure.
I think webinar that we do that might be really helpful for you guys is our transition to adulthood. Or what is the other one, Susie or Paula? I know because you guys, I'm sorry guys, I just recently came back from maternity leaves and we have some new webinars that I'm not super familiar with, but I know we have the transition to adulthood, and there's another one, right?
Transition to post-secondary life.
Post-secondary.
And then there's also mapping dreams. Those are all transition webinars.
So those webinars, I think, might give you a little bit more insight, as to the whole transition process and what that's going to look like. If that's a fair response, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. Does changing the disability in an IEP change services?
I guess I want to say my first response is remember that it's based on the need. So services are based on the need, not necessarily the disability. So those IEP goals and objectives should be based on the child's needs.
Absolutely.
I hope that answered your question.
Okay. And there's a question regarding the, do we have to do monkey survey or just evaluation? It's the same thing. The monkey survey is the evaluation.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, do all schools provide an SAI class?
No.
No. But I heard there's specific counties that like to use the SAI class.
Yes. There's some counties that are more prone to use SAI. There's some districts who are still some districts who are using special day classes. And there's some pros and cons to SAI and SDC and all of that. But some counties are using SAI more than others. So.
Okay. Just one second.
And I just want to say, Susie, because I'm looking at the chat and I know we have 45 new messages, and I just want to say no. Okay.
No, we pretty much six new messages.
Okay, good. Okay, because I was going to say if we run out of time, just email me. Just feel free to email me, and I'll put my contact information in the chat, and we can address your questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go. I'll do that right now. So. But go ahead, Susie. Sorry.
Okay. I went down and. Okay, so my son is in 8th grade. Wait, I'm sorry. So if my preschool child is in an SAI class and the SAI class is his main class, he also gets a limited number of hours on mainstream in a general education class per week. Is that pretty much a special day class, more or less, but by another name? All the students in his main class are special education students.
Hala, I'm going to refer this one to you.
Okay, sure. So yeah, special, like we said before, they're kind of reclassifying the special day class mild to moderate. So for higher functioning students who are able to work on the core curriculum and the Common Core state standards, they are typically receiving education either in a special day class mild to moderate, and resource specialist pull-out program or push-in program, or an SAI. So your district may call it different things, but the SAI program for those schools who have it have kind of taken the place of the resource specialist program / special day class. They kind of combined them into one and call it an SAI class now. And so if your student's spending, your students it's up to the IEP team as to how much time your student spends in that class. And I know that's not what you asked, but anyway, it is up to the IEP team, including you. And so, yeah, you can use them interchangeably, I should say.
Okay, this is an easy one. How long is an IEP meeting?
As long as it needs to be. To get all your questions and concerns addressed.
And Deanna?
Yes, Paula.
And do you want to let them know that they can have multiple meetings if they need to?
I was just about to say that. Yes, I was just about to let you know. And another thing too, like Paula said, and I was just about to say, is that, you know, you don't have to squeeze everything into a 3-hour meeting, you know. If you need to schedule it, postpone, continue on another date. I mean, I always say just pull out your calendar and say, you know, let's reconvene. Let's reconvene. So, but essentially, I mean, as long as you need it to be to address your questions and concerns, and you know.
Another good idea is to let the IEP team know that you would like to request more than 1 hour. So if you think you're gonna need 2 hours, 3 hours, it would be good for you to request. That way they can plan for a 2-3 hour IEP meeting. If you think that you're gonna need more time, more than an hour.
Yeah.
So it would be good for you to request extra time for your IEP meeting in writing.
And also, I mean, there is no specific time frame. There is no, your IEP can only be 1 hour. So just to add to your question, or add to the answer.
Okay, next question. What if they don't have an IEP yet? My child does not have an IEP yet because he is not in school yet. 4 years old, he is not vaccinated. I will be homeschooling him through a public charter. Will he be eligible for an IEP through the school district once he starts, even if he's not vaccinated?
Well, in order to be eligible for an IEP, there has to be an assessment that is requested to assess for the IEP.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that answer, or the answer to the question, is that, yeah, they, you know, the vaccination requirement doesn't determine special education eligibility. That's not part of the special education eligibility criteria.
Okay. Where can I find the accommodations on an IEP?
Well, some place that you could find the accommodations are where the goal is written. You know, they might be written into the information where the goal is.
About the related services,
you know, the related
page.
services page. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like if they're receiving related services, it can be on that page as well.
And sometimes they have a page all to themselves, depending if there's a lot of them. Also, too, in the testing portion, Deanna, where they talk about testing, you'll find testing accommodations there, because the IEP needs to talk about what kinds of accommodations the child's going to have on classroom test and also standardized tests, right? So that'd be another place.
And again, I can't stress it enough, you know, the IEPs will look different. They're going to look different school district to school district. So it's hard for me to tell you this is exactly where it's going to be. So you have to remember that the content, what's important is that the content is somewhere, that you can find it somewhere on the IEP. Is that fair? Is that, you know?
Okay. What is the turnaround time approximately when asking for help from task?
48 hours, 24. I mean,
yeah, 24 to 48.
24 to 48. Yeah. And keep in mind, I want to mention this is good. We're a team here. So Susie and I are out of the Riverside area, but you might be in San Diego, and guess what? You're going to talk to Susie and I, or you might talk to someone in our LA office. You know, okay, OC, same thing. You may or may not get, and the way that we do it is first available FSS is going to contact you, because we want to get to you as soon as possible.
And Deanna, do you want to let them know that we may be calling for block numbers? So just to be aware of that.
Yes, Paula, thank you so much. So just not me. I'm the only one that will not have a block number. But everyone else does have a block number. Mine is a 951 number, but everyone else, they will. So sorry, my meeting is March 2nd. Call tomorrow.
Yes.
Call tomorrow, okay?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so if we call from a
Okay.
block number and you don't pick up, we'll call you back. And so we will give you a time frame in the voicemail message at the time that we're going to call you back. But we're working remotely, so
Yeah,
that's why our numbers are blocked.
yeah.
So if you call and you see a number that's blocked, it might be us.
It might be us.
Most likely
Yeah.
it will be us.
And we'll
Okay.
call you back. You know, you'll call the main number and we'll call you right back. So don't worry.
Where can I find an advocate to accompany me during IEP meetings?
I know.
How about the Office of Administrative Hearings list,
Yes.
Deanna?
The Office of Administrating. We can provide you with I guess it's online, Paula.
Yes.
Yeah, it's online.
There's a link. There's
A
a link
link for it.
online. Mhm. If you
Okay,
call
just-
task, we can call or email task, we can provide you that link.
Provide you with that. Yeah.
Okay, so does TASK help with reading an assessment done by a neuropsychologist who diagnosed her with ADHD?
Uh,
Paula?
So we can review the assessment report. We can help you understand what the report is saying. We can't interpret the results, but we can at least tell you what the assessment results are saying. But we don't do them though. We don't do that, but we can go over them and review them with you and tell you what the document is saying. And if you want to know what your options are, then we can go over that with you.
Okay, prior to the pandemic, and IEP meeting documents such as IEP meeting notes for interim meetings are developed and presented for signature from attendees, etc. After virtual online IEP meetings, following my written request to review IEEs, discuss educational progress, concerns, IEP review, etc., the IEP team school staff did not produce any IEP document or written notes. One meeting was over 2 months ago. The other was this month. What documentation is required to be presented for signature with IEP meetings, whether in person or virtual? And are there deadlines to present IEP meeting documents to parents?
I'm reading it, Susie, because I'm not sure what the question was. There was a lot of information in there.
So I think one of the questions is there a time frame in which the district has to get the IEP document to parents after the meeting? If I'm understanding correctly, I think that's one of the questions.
And
Is that correct? Okay, thank you, Helen. Yeah.
The signature also.
Okay, so yeah, Deanna, do you want to answer that?
Actually, Paula, can you? I'm trying to
Sure.
read her question to
Okay,
make sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know, there it says reasonable amount of time, but if you know, you say that you had a meeting recently, I don't know how long ago that meeting was, but if you had it recently, then you know, then they're still within a reasonable amount of time. If you had the meeting 2 months ago and they haven't given you anything from the meeting, that's not reasonable. You know, they should give you the documents within a few days. 12/15, so that's December, but then we have the winter break in there, right? Okay, but still we're in the middle of February, so that's okay. Yeah, that's over 2 months ago, Helen is writing, so that's not reasonable. It should be within a few days. Parents don't have a time frame in which to sign the IEP, but districts do need to get the document to parents within a reasonable amount of time so that they can go over the document and even set up another meeting if they need to. So 2 months, I don't think would fall within that reasonable amount of time.
And I'm sorry, I went through and I read your question and you asked what documentation is required to be presented for signature with IEP meetings. Well, if you're signing that you agree with the IEP, it has to be the IEP document, if that's your question. That's how I interpreted your question.
Okay,
So
When?
in order to sign for the IEP, to consent to the, to sign that you agree with the IEP, you have to see the IEP document to know what it says.
Yeah, and I think she's saying when. When do you have to do that? Or when do they
Oh.
have to do it? Yeah.
Okay, because I read what documentation is required
Oh.
to be presented for signature.
Yeah.
So,
I think she just put something back in chat.
oh, okay. Sorry.
okay. What services does the regional center provide for our daughter for her appropriate age, 18? What are their supports and services that can they offer or support?
If you email me, I will email you a link from the Department of Developmental Services that oversees Regional Center, and I'll send you a table that breaks it down for you.
Okay. Can't speech and language be its own thing? SLD is totally different.
Yeah. I mean, yes. To answer that question, Deanna, do you want to answer that? Or?
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Paul. I'm
Okay.
trying to read through the questions. I'm so sorry.
Okay. So they're saying, can speech and aren't SLD and speech separate? They are two separate categories under which students can qualify, and they have to meet specific guidelines to fall under each. And so the previous question was, can a child who has speech and language qualify who qualifies under speech and language qualify under specific learning disability? And my response was yes, if they meet the criteria for both categories. And then I gave an example of how that might be for auditory processing, but they are two distinct separate categories. You're absolutely right. If a student meets the qualifying criteria under both categories, then they could qualify under both categories. But to clarify, those are two separate and distinct categories. So I hope I didn't make that muddier and more confusing.
Next question, can you go from a 504 to an IEP?
If you request, well, how do I answer this? Sure, yes, yes, you can. The easy answer, how's that? Because I know we're pressed for time.
Yeah.
So yes, you can. You can request an assessment for an IEP.
Okay, when a triennial IEP is due, such as May, is an annual meeting, is an annual IEP meeting required when annual is due in March, just 2 months prior? Can the annual and triennial IEP be consolidated at parents' request?
Yes. Yes. Yes, it can.
Okay. And okay, just thank yous. Okay, one more question.
Okay.
School district allowed just 1 hour to cover several request items, including reviewing IEEs and IEP review. Following my written request in early November 2020, the inadequate IEP meeting was mid-December. The school did not follow through with reconvening a continuation meeting immediately after winter break. I'm still waiting. They're pursuing their own agenda, attempting to schedule triennial assessments, which I do not consent to. An annual IEP, then a triennial IEP. My requested IEP meeting has been lost. If the school denies my request to review the all IEEs continued at public expense by prior school district, should the district provide a prior written notice?
If they are denying, yes, you can request the prior written notice. Is that an easy answer?
And Deanna, if they want more info, how about if they contact TASC
definitely
or contact
contact
you?
us because I'm reading your question, and definitely contact us.
Yeah.
I just, it's hard to answer because we need more we want more information, right? Because we want to present you with all possible options. So yes, Paula, definitely, like Paula said, definitely reach out to us.
Yeah, because I was pretty involved, and I think there might be some other underlying things going on. So maybe the option to connect with a family support specialist or Deanna, who is a family support specialist, would be a great option. to use.
Yeah. And so what I'll do right now is I'll go ahead and I will provide my contact information. Is that okay? I'll provide task contact information and I'll provide my email address. So if you want to contact me, you
I'll
could
put
definitely.
that information. You can put your email.
Okay, thank you, Susie. Thank you, Susie. And I hope that we answered all of your questions. I know this was a lengthy, there's a lot of information in this webinar, but what I want you to take away is that when in doubt, if you have a question, contact us. We're here to support you. So please, please, please reach out to us. Okay.
And
So
don't forget to fill out the evaluation.
yes, thank you, Susie. Don't forget to fill out.
You already did that, but we have time for you to do it in case you haven't.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining us. And again, visit our website. We have several additional upcoming webinars that you all might find helpful. And again, we're here to support you. So definitely feel free to reach out to us.
I'm gonna go ahead and add the slides handout again, and
And it looks like they're asking for the eval, the survey.
Yeah, they
monkey.
need the SurveyMonkey link.
okay,
Yeah.
I'll add that right now.
Yeah, and thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your evening and joining us.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your great questions.
Yes, really good questions. And I'm glad, I mean, I think we had enough time for everyone's questions, so that's good.
Yeah. Nice seeing you again, Helen.
Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording, Paula.